Growing up, my life was very atypical, but in the moment, I never really knew that. I always thought that I was very normal. And so, whenever I was 7 years old, I went to a Christian summer camp called Camp Living Water, and I heard the gospel for the very first time, and I gave my life to Jesus. The problem for me, though, was coming back from camp. My mom and dad weren't practicing Christians. So if I wasn't at camp or I wasn't with my grandparents, then my walk always drifted. Right whenever high school started, I was working on staff at Camp Living Water now. But then as soon as I would come back from being on staff at camp, I really started to not trust the Bible as much. It started out as legit questioning that devolved into just unadulterated sin. I was in the partying scene, and I was doing drugs and drinking every day. I mean, I didn't see any value in myself, and I kind of just wanted to be numb to that. After I graduated high school, I probably overdosed, but I don't know because nobody else was around me. I was by myself, and so I ended up passing out, and whenever I passed out, I fell over onto the hookah, and my shirt caught on fire, and I thought that I was dying. I mean, I didn't think that there was any time left, and so I called out to Jesus because I thought if anybody could save me in that moment, that would be him, and that was the only hope that I had. I had a personal encounter with Jesus that night, and the only reason that I'm alive today is because of him intervening. And the next morning, whenever I woke up and I didn't die, I just laid out where I was at in life to God. I laid out how I felt like I was wrong and how I didn't want my life to keep going like this. And it wasn't an hour later that I got a call from the director of Camp Living Water asking me to come out and help in the kitchen. For the first time in my life, whenever I got to camp this time, I was eager to actually understand what the Bible was about. And I just started reading the Gospel of John and actually soaking it in for the first time and taking notes. And I just felt this sense of joy, like this sense of, okay, I'm actually starting to understand what this is about. Jesus is God. He came in the flesh to take on sin, to make us right with himself. Like, that's so good. And now that I was reading through John and just getting light out of it, and I was surrounded by all these other Christians, my faith really grew, but it was almost kind of a false slowing up of sorts that got tested because I ended up going back home and moving back in with my parents. I believe during that time I got a even better understanding of the gospel, because as soon as I went back to the real world, I realized, oh man, I'm going to need some grace for myself. The Lord really transformed my heart in those moments, and really showed me what it's like to need the gospel and to need to be refreshed. During the period of time that I was living at my parents' house, I was developing my relationship with my future wife, Mary Beth, who I'd actually met working at camp. So that was what the next season of life ended up being. And the Lord just lined up everything so perfectly. That was just one of the huge blessings that I got out of being faithful to the Lord through that time of testing and trial. I feel like the biggest blessing that I got out of that was being able to take my bride and marry her. After me and Mary Beth got married, Mary Beth found out that she was pregnant with our first daughter. And so we got to welcome in a beautiful baby girl, and my family started to grow. In my heart of hearts, that's really all that I ever wanted. And so for me, as a father, whenever I'm thinking about, the life that I want to lead and set the example for my kids, I just want to show them that Jesus is real and that he's worth being real with. There's no point in ever having this mask and knowing the right things to say, and I want this to be something that's real for even my kids now, and the only way I can make that happen is if it's real for me and they see that. What Jesus did for me, the gospel, it allows me to live my life freely. I like to put things on my own plate, and I like to worry about things I don't have to, but man, whenever I realize the truth of the gospel, then that just allows me to step into this freedom to where I can accomplish whatever it is God has for me and whatever he's put on my plate. And that's just what I continually have seen time and time again in my life. It's you go through these times of trials where, you have to rely on God. your faith gets tested. He says, hey, are you going to choose me, or are you going to do your own thing? And if you just come back to him, if you say, I can't do this, I need you, Lord, I need you to do this. If you have faith in him, he always comes through in ways that are better than what you could have ever done.